Welcome to Leadership Live. I'm glad to have you here on the live stream. This video is very important because how we handle certain situations affects outcomes and the results of many things in life. Whether you're looking at a job, whether you're looking at a relationship and family, what we're going to discuss today is very critical for that. So today we're going to look at how to handle or overcome difficult situations. Stay tuned. Thank you again for joining us for Leadership Live. Make sure that you have a notepad for today's session because it's going to be so jam-packed with value. If we're just meeting for the first time, hi, my name is Ndumi, and I help aspiring entrepreneurs and leaders get into their leadership roles through leadership training. So I help aspiring leaders gain their confidence and move into leadership training. So today's episode, I'm very excited about it. If you have any questions, please make sure you're leaving them below in the comment section so that I can get to them. I'm looking forward to doing that. Let me start off, obviously in life, we're all going through difficult situations. We're all facing stresses and trials, etc. However, we need to learn how to handle these conversations well. We need to be able to navigate these difficult situations as they come across. And even now, I'm thinking about it. I've got 3 or 4 situations right now in my head that I'm thinking about, and I'm like, yeah, I need to have some tough conversations there. So the framework that we're going to go through today is 7 steps how to handle a difficult conversation. Will help you figure out how it is that you want to go about addressing some of these difficult conversations, and will give you some of the tips and the tools of how to do that. So it's going to be power-packed. I'm looking forward to going through it. If you are on the live stream, please just type in difficult conversations, even if you're watching on the replay. If you're watching on the replay, we welcome you, we thank you, we want you to be part of the full experience, and I'm sure you will be. This is value for everyone. So let's get straight into it. So number 1, let me get the slides up, how to have difficult conversations, 7 steps to navigate difficult conversations. Number 1 is do your homework. When we want to have difficult conversations, the first thing you need to do is make sure that you're doing your homework. Make sure that you understand what it is that you want to get out of that difficult conversation. And when I said in the title, how to navigate or how to have difficult conversations and win, we're now talking about the winning part. This is when you win. And the win is to try get a situation where everyone comes out happy. So by winning, we're saying by the time you finish the conversation, you have listened well, you've heard all the points that the person or people that you're trying to have the conversation with are saying, and that you have put across your points as well, and your points have been fully heard and taken into account. So when you've won, you have achieved those 2 goals alone. So it's not about having people submit and say, yes, you're the winner, let's leave it alone and move on. It's not about that, but it's about making sure that you have fully heard and that you are heard as well. Another part of doing your homework is making sure that both parties have agreed to this conversation. It's one thing to have a difficult situation, but it's another thing where people want to actually come together and have that conversation. So that's part of the homework that you have to do. You have to see, is there a willingness to come together to resolve this issue? And if there is, then at least you've ticked off one of the boxes. And part of your homework is also realizing that you are not perfect. You have to realize that you're not perfect and that you are not the hero, so to speak, in this difficult conversation, but that you also need to come and learn and say, what are the things that I have done wrong? How am I to blame? How did I help skew this conversation or the situation to a point where it's now gotten bad and that we now need to have a difficult conversation about it? So make sure that you're looking inside, you're introspecting the whole time so that you can listen, learn, and leap. So you're listening out, where have I gone wrong? Learn from my mistakes and leap, how do we go forward from those mistakes? And then the homework that you need, the last part of the homework that you need to do before you even enter into a difficult conversation is figure out what are the things that I want to achieve from this conversation. So my ideal outcome is this. If I have this conversation and everything goes perfectly, my ideal outcome is this. But then also on the like or other end, you have to say, this is the worst case scenario. This is what I do not accept. This is what I will not accept out of the conversation. And with those two, you're able to now work in the middle to come up to a resolution. Because obviously a conversation requires people to compromise in certain instances. So you're not hard set on the things that you want to achieve, and you also know the things that maybe this one is where you're hard set and say, no matter what, I will not compromise with this, whether it's compromising with my morals, my beliefs, the things that I want to achieve out of my life, my vision, all those things that you might not be willing to compromise on. Make sure you know it in advance before you even get into the conversation. Then we move on to number 2. And number 2 is choose the right setting. It's very important that, before you get into a difficult conversation and before you have that difficult conversation, that you have chosen the right setting. And you know what they say in real estate, it applies here, that location, location, location. The location of this conversation matters. You need to make sure, and it's not just a physical location, but it's also a mental location. Where are you in your head? Are you still angry? Are you still trying to get your point across without listening? Where are you located? Because that's very important. Without choosing the right setting and making sure that you're located in the right place, your heart is in the right place, your mind is in the right place, as per the homework that you would have done before, to make sure that you understand what you want your outcomes to be, you understand where you're not willing to compromise, then that's very important. But also the physical location also matters. You want to choose somewhere, if it's a physical meeting, you want to choose somewhere that is neutral, somewhere where you both feel comfortable, or all parties feel comfortable. Because as we know in soccer, that the home team always has an advantage. So you want to make sure that you've leveled the playing field. And if you want to even drill down further into the issue of location, it's making sure that you're seated together and that you're at eye contact, eye level with one another. You don't want someone to be higher up and lower down. And it's just a psychology thing that if someone is seated high up and imposing, looking down upon you, then you also are at a slight disadvantage there. But as well as if you're on eye level, you're more at par. And we've seen that R. Kelly interview with Gail, where he now stands up and is imposing and his whole body is coming down upon her. And you can see that that argument was definitely not going to go anywhere, just because physically he had put himself in a stature for war rather than resolving conflict. So that's something that we need to watch out for. And even if you watch that video, it's such a good video to watch. I'll put a link up here for those that are watching on the replay, for you just watch her body language and see that she was calm, she was composed, she was poised, she was sitting down. And that's what you want to have in your settings, to make sure that you have the right setting. Okay, and then now you move on to number 3, which is frame the conversation. The conversation needs to be framed well. So you need to make sure that you set the ground rules for the conversation before you even start. So that's things like saying, We are not going to shout. We're not going to raise our voices, because once we raise our voices, we deteriorate. The conversation will go the wrong way. And also having a summary of the issues. You need to have a summary of the issues that both of you agree with. So you're going to see that this is actually a very important part of keeping the conversation framed. So if you think about the concept of a picture frame, right now you're seeing my face, and where my fingers are, that's framing. That's the place that you're meant to focus on. And that's what framing a conversation is about, making sure that you're focusing on the key issues, because a conversation can start about an issue about work and talk about how you neglected the sick dog. So if you don't frame your conversation, if you don't put it within a barrier, then you're most likely to lose control of that conversation. So like I said, you have to agree on the summarized terms. But what is very important here is, and I like this again, referring to work from Jordan Peterson, who says you need to understand the person's side of the issue to the point where you're able to then repeat it to them, and not just repeat it to them, but to a point where they agree with the summary of their position that you've given. So it's lots of hard work to work through a difficult conversation, but it's very important, if you want to do it, that you make sure you're really on the same terms of reference, you're really framing it correctly, you're looking at it in the right point of view, by making sure that I'm able to come on to you and say, all right, I think that you were really upset because I did not do A, B, C, and D. And you'd be surprised that the person will say, actually, no. Yes, you didn't do A, B, and C. I wasn't quite upset with D, but it's actually E and F that really upset me. And when you're able to have that sort of a discussion up front, before you even talk about the dot points, the A's, B, and C's, then you find that you are in a good place to have a good, difficult conversation. So if you are enjoying this video, please make sure you give it a thumbs up. I'd really appreciate it. It's good to see that you're getting value from the video, and it also helps this video through the YouTube algorithm get to other people. So if you're really enjoying, if you're getting value so far, please hit the like button as we continue to point number 4. And this is when we get active now, because before we're really preparing for the conversation, we're trying to make sure that we understand each other, and now we're actually getting into the meat of it. So number 4 is listen actively. You see, some people, when you're listening so that you can come up with your points to support your argument, or you're trying to listen to break down their argument. You're listening for any other reason apart from the reason why you're there to actually resolve the issue. So when you're now there and you're actually sitting down face to face, you've chosen your location, you've chosen your setting, the environment is right, you've gotten the frame in order. Now it's actually time to listen. So this is again where you're listening to the summaries of the other person's points. You're listening to the issues that this person has to bring up, and you're taking it in. You're not necessarily going to rebut anything at this point. When you're having a disagreement, especially a difficult one, the key strength is not to butt in and not to chip in until someone has fully expressed the point, because especially with highly emotionally charged conversations, you find that the conversation itself is scattered. So you have to, through conversation, you're bringing in those parts, that point there, that solution, whatever it is, you bring it together to have one coherent argument. So you shouldn't really, butt in, because you're not allowing that full argument to form, and the next person won't feel like they've been heard at all if you keep interjecting every point of the way. So I find the same even with myself, and I try to come in to summarize these issues, even as a father, as a dad, because like I'm saying, all these things apply to business, they apply to family, they apply church level, leadership, any level. These tools help you. So when my children are fighting and they're arguing and they're going back and forth and they're young and they can't quite understand, this is when I pull them back and I try to get them to listen to each other, to listen to one another's points, to try to listen to where they're coming from. And because they're still quite young, I now take the role of summarizing for them the issue. So I'll say, this is what your sister is saying. This is what she's upset with. Do you understand? This is what your sister is saying. Do you understand? And then once they can understand where each other are coming from, once they've listened to each other's point of view, then we know we're in a better position to move forward. So it's very critical. Before you start arguing your points, before you start pushing your agenda and the things that you're trying to get done across, that you first listen. So now let's move on to step number 5. And this is it, talk. We haven't really gotten to a part where you are talking yet. All these, 1, 2, 3, 4 have not really engaged you as such in terms of talking. You haven't really had your room and your time to shine, so to speak. But that's it, because we listen more than we speak. If we want to have a difficult conversation go well, we need to remember that we're listening more than we speak. So now when we're talking though, guess what we're doing? The first thing you do when you talk, when you're opening your mouth, is not to push across your point, but is to ask clarifying questions. So if you're taking notes down, I hope you've been taking notes down. Otherwise, you can watch this again. It's available online. You ask clarifying questions. So if there are things that you didn't understand before you try, because we said you want to understand, if you're winning in this conversation, you have fully understood what the one party is saying, and then in turn, over time, they will fully understand where you are coming from. So you want to ask clarifying questions. So there's another video I've done of the 5 words that all leaders ask, and that's part of it. So again, if you're watching on the replay, I'll put a link to it right there, and you can watch it later. But the clarifying questions are words like what, how, when, who, open-ended questions. You want to ask open-ended questions because open-ended questions get more conversation. The other questions where you're like, but you are wrong, right? And you're just like, it's a yes or no answer. It's no asking for clarification. You're just, you're quick to try to pin the person down. Then you're not going to get any winning whatsoever. So the first thing you want to do is make sure you're asking clarifying questions. Then the second thing from there, after you've clarified and you've understood and you've summarized, you're going back to your summary. You've summarized after getting those clarifying questions. Then it's time to acknowledge where you've gone wrong already from the get-go, before you even put your point across and say, no, but the only reason I did it is because you're rude or whatever. Or the only reason I did it is because of A, B, C, D. No, that is not how you're going to navigate through a difficult conversation. Wow. The next thing you need to do is say, okay, yes, I'm sorry. I can see that it looks like I didn't care about you when I said these things in public. This is an example of maybe me and my wife when I haven't, I've cracked a joke and it didn't come across well. And it might have been in public or even in private. And, I'll say, okay, I understand, that I might not have gotten my thing across wrong. In fact, I did not. So don't say might have. That's something I've learned the hard way. Don't say might have, but I know that I didn't come across the way that I wanted to and the way that you expected, and acknowledge that, and I apologize for that part. So you're not closing the conversation either by a quick apology and saying, but I'm sorry, because that's also what people just say, hey, all right, yeah, I did this, I'm sorry, and you want to end the conversation there. But no, it's a different way of acknowledging what you've done wrong, in a sense to just show that you're also listening, that you're acknowledging the pain and the pain that it's caused, and you're summarizing this as well. So the key is summary. you're summarizing this again to say, okay, I'm sorry that I said that. I know that it might have belittled you or made you not feel happy, or that, whatever the thing is, what you have listened to, and you're now summarizing it back. So once you've done that, and you've summarized and you have agreed, you now need to remember not to argue over the small details. So you're talking and you don't want to argue over small details. You don't want to argue over, the minute, the dot points when you're not addressing the bigger issue or the deeper issue. So try not to then get sidetracked by small points as you're talking. Make sure that you stick to the bigger issue at first, and then obviously as the conversation goes, then you can drill down to the smaller points as you move on. Another thing that's also very important: talk in facts and feelings, tangible things. Let's not get into accusations, absolutes, and labeling people. So you don't want to say you always lie, or you say you're a liar, or you're labeling them, and all those things that we do, when we're having, you always, forget to lock the door, or you always, forget to file this report, or you always, because once you label someone, you put them in a box, you put them in a different frame than the frame that we're trying to work on. You've now put them in a different frame. Yeah, sorry with the camera. You're putting them in a different frame to the frame that you're working on. And that won't make the conversation move. It won't help anyone at all. So we need to make sure that we're not framing people in a bad way, no accusations, no absolutes, no labels, but rather we're talking about facts. So you say on Tuesday, when you did A, B, C, and D, it made me feel like I'm not appreciated. Or on Wednesday, when we had that meeting with that contractor, and they asked a question regarding my area of influence, and you bulldozed, or it felt like I felt bulldozed. Don't say you bulldozed, because again, you're labeling. But you are, I felt like you were bulldozing me, and I felt that I didn't have any room to, put in my expertise into this issue. So we need to then talk, really try to remove the emotion. And it's hard because it's a difficult conversation. It's got high emotion, it's highly charged. But if you want to make it through, if you want to be able to move on to a better place, you need to be able to then take that and say, this is the facts of the situation. This is how I felt about the situation. And Proverbs 15 verse 1 says that a soft answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. And it goes back to that point that we need to use soft words. We need to use the words that are not accusing, putting people in a corner, in a box, but we're also being truthful. We're also being honest. We're also addressing the issues head on. So that's very important for us to do. So, which also ties into the next point when we're still in talking, that speak directly, but with plain, simple language. Some words are open to interpretation, and we don't want to use words that are open to interpretation, words that are, if you're talking the vernacular, the words that, are accusatory, right? But they're also, okay in the correct context. So it's that sort of thing that you need to make sure that you're using plain language, because you want to get down to the solution. So even using big words, if you're trying to, say the pith and the plural, someone will be like, what is he trying to say? But you just say, no, the heart of the issue, or really how I was affected was A, B, C, D. And you have simple words, and you're not trying to be flashy with our vocabulary, or you're not trying to put in, snide remarks undercover, then you find that you're actually using soft words, and the soft words actually calm down someone's wrath. And that's what you're trying to do. You're not trying to make them out to be a bad guy or anything. You're trying to calm down people's anger. So that is point number 5 as we go on this journey. And now we are back to point number 6. But point number 6, we have already been weaving it in. So you see, this is a system of talking. It's a system of figuring out how to make these difficult conversations better. And that is summarize. So we need to be summarizing the whole time. We need to be summarizing how we are, having this discussion. Are we getting the points? Are we agreeing with each other? And if you're there and you want to leave a comment, make sure you write down summarize in the comments right now, because that is your key tool to making sure that you're navigating through a difficult conversation well. So that means, so I'm just checking my notes. Yeah, like I said, you're making sure that your conversation is heading in the right direction and that you're checking on the frame. Remember we said you want to frame that conversation? So every time you summarize, you're checking, are we still within the frame? Are we still within the framework that we set out in the beginning? Have we now gone on a rabbit trail and started talking about your grandmother's Christmas dinner 3 years ago? Which can happen, if you're now letting the conversation digress. So make sure you're typing below, summarize. I can see the comments there. Shout out to Nanzi, to Tinashe, who have left some comments. So leave a comment saying summarize below so that you know that you're keeping things within the frame. And then the last step within this navigation, this compass towards guiding yourself through difficult conversations is know when to quit. And that is a very difficult one, because when conversations get heated and people are in their feelings, it's so hard for things to spiral down quickly. But as a leader, you need to be able to identify the signs of conversation going wrong and cut it off quickly, because it's easy to say words. It's easy for, in the heat of the moment for something that you regret to be said, but it's so hard for those words to be taken back. In fact, it's impossible. It's impossible for words once spoken or texted or emailed or sent out somehow through gossip or word of mouth. It's so hard for those words to be taken back. So we need to be able to stop things before they deteriorate to that level. So if you're stuck and you're seeing that you're going around in circles, so this is one of the signs. You're seeing that this point keeps coming up again, and either one, we've already dealt with it. 2, we've agreed to park it for later, which is also another critical thing in terms of difficult conversations. There's some things that might just need to be parked for later, whether it's because it's very emotive, emotions are high, or because you need facts, you need to get your information together and say, all right, on Tuesday, 5 p.m., you're upset because I did A, B, C, D. I don't remember that. Let me go back and refer to my emails. Let me go back and refer to my WhatsApp. Let me go back and refer so that I can come back to you with a proper position on the issue. So that's it. You're finding yourself going around in circles on certain topics. Then you know, okay, maybe we need to calm down because this is going to deteriorate. Or you're finding that the emotions. So like R. Kelly is starting to stand up. You're starting, and the body language. I'll do another video of body language for leaders. But you can see the body language starts to change. And people are like, signs of agitation. Things like this show that, the conversation isn't going well. And the fidgety and, all of those signs show that, okay, maybe this conversation is not going the right way. And like I said, the key is to stop it before you even get to a full-on blowout. So I hope that you found value in this video, in this short training. If you have, please give it a thumbs up, a like. Please leave a comment below. and we will, apologies for that technical difficulty. You have to be able to laugh at yourself. That's what I wanted to get up. Please make sure that you're following me on social media so that we can keep the conversation going. So I am on Twitter, I'm on Facebook, on TikTok, LinkedIn, and obviously here on YouTube. So let's keep the conversation going. But I want to leave a question for you to answer below. And the question is, what was your aha moment? We discussed 7 steps, but each step had, breakdown points underneath it. What were the ones for you that were like, oh, I never thought about it like that? Or was a light bulb moment where you feel like, okay, I think I'm now more clear on this topic. I look forward to hearing all your comments, and please make sure that you leave your comments down below. But we need to remember, as we draw this to a close very quickly, that a single conversation can change your life for the good or for the bad. So it's very critical to have the skills that you need to navigate through these difficult conversations. So thank you very much for watching this. Please make sure that you subscribe there and watch these other 2 videos below. Thank you for joining us for the live stream. Take care and goodbye.